Joining us right now, my friend, Congressman Louie Gohmert from the beautiful Republic of Texas. And he is recovered from the Wuhan coronavirus. And Congressman, it's so good to see you. We prayed for your recovery. We prayed for your symptoms to be eased and for you to get back on your feet quickly because we need you out there. It's good to be with you.
Well, it's great to be with you. And I tell you, the prayers matter. They do make a difference.
Yeah, they do.
And I deeply regret that so many Americans have had either the FDA or Twitter, Facebook, Google come between them and their doctors. The hydroxychloroquine regimen wouldn't be right for everybody, but for heaven's sake, those that it would help should have their doctors able to prescribe that for them. And I did have a couple of bad days. I never had fever, though. It was interesting. But, you know, the achiness and the, unpleasantness, the malaise, lethargy. But as of last week, I was able to give plasma and the antibodies. And I know you saw this this week. The president had the FDA announce that they do accept now the convalescent plasma, the antibodies, as a proper treatment. And I was pleased. I've given gallons of blood, never at the same time, but
I was going to say,
but
over the course of time.
Sure. Well, Dana, our liberal friends sometimes take things and
they very
twist
literally,
them.
yes.
Yeah. So I'd be the Walking Dead then if that were the case. But I'd never given plasma before. But it turns out when you give plasma, there's still you get a little stick where they put the needle in. But they divide your plasma up between 3 bags because they can give that to 3 different people instead of 1. And it was interesting. They put your red blood cells back after it goes through a centrifuge. But the thought of being able to help 3 people was a great thing. And anyway, it's weird, but I feel better now than I did before I got it. My wife thinks maybe it's the rest, but
maybe. Because you've been out there, you're everywhere, and you've been fighting hard. Maybe you needed the rest. Maybe it was, way to kind of keep you back there. I have to ask you. I know you've been watching the convention. It's different this year because it's a different energy. It's not the energy of everyone there on the floor. It's not the energy of all the people screaming, but it is the energy of some really good speakers and I think carefully curated stories that you really feel like these people are joining you in your home and talking with you and reciting, for the lack of a better way to put it, the hits of the past almost 4 years. What are your thoughts on the convention thus far?
Well, exactly what you were talking about earlier, and that is you have such compelling stories. And of course, Mike Pence, our vice president, he has always been a good speaker. And, Marsha Blackburn, I see my friends, and they're great speakers. But what really gets you is these compelling stories from people who have probably never been up in front of a crowd to that extent. And I think it's just been wonderful. Yeah. So I applaud Ronna and the RNC and the job they've done. They've done a wonderful job of getting just American stories before the American public. It's great.
Absolutely. Hopefully we can see some of that, those stories, and at least a clash of ideas and debates, because I think what the first debate that we have between Biden and Trump is scheduled for the 29th. I've got to get your thoughts on this because Nancy Pelosi came out today and has said that she doesn't think there should be any more debates. In fact, I read a tweet from her a little bit earlier. She said, I don't think that the president of the United States, direct quote, has comported himself in a way that has any association with truth, evidence, data, and facts. I wouldn't legitimize a conversation with him nor a debate, end quote. Is that really her decision to make, though, Congressman? I mean, isn't that depriving the citizenry of seeing who their choices are this election?
Well, it is not her decision to make. Obviously, she's wanting to protect Joe Biden. And I can understand why she would want to do that. I mean, I've been expecting more people, in addition to the speaker, to come out and say, we don't need debates because they're afraid of Joe Biden's performance and what will happen. And he may urge people to vote for him for senator again, like he has before, instead of for vice or instead of for president. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, it's for president. If you're running and you've got you're 50 points ahead of an opponent, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have a debate in my mind at that point. But when we're talking about the presidency, yes, we need to see you stand up for our country and be able to take somebody on, especially what could be, we're told, a very close race. I hope that President Trump blows it away. We have been so blessed by the grace of God, and it's a good thing I'm not God. I would have already given up on us the way we've turned our back on God.
True.
But thank God it's God and I'm not. And well, you've written, but God has given us another chance, and we need to make full use of it. And these people that think that communism, I mean, I know you've talked about, but Black Lives Matter, you look, it's basically right out of the Communist Manifesto.
It's a Marxist organization.
That includes,
it wraps itself in the veneer of equality. But it's, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I really want to have you weigh in on this. One of the things that I heard mentioned at the convention last night with Laura Trump, and then, you see what's happening on the streets in Kenosha, you see what's been going on in Minneapolis. It was stated that this is not like other elections. In the past, it's always, okay, what policies are better, Republican, Democrat? Let's get into the weeds. Yes, you do that still, but at the same time, this isn't just a difference between Democrat and Republican anymore. This is a difference between socialism and ultimately freedom, or as free as you can get it. I think that is pretty accurate. What is your thought on this? And do you think that, I mean, I would hope that voters realize this. I think maybe some of them are when they see what's happening in Kenosha, which is why Trump's approval rating is starting to rise. Your thought?
Well, you understand, when you're talking about socialism, communism, progressivism, whichever you want to call it, you go back to the proponents, whether it's Marx, Engels, Lenin. I mean, all of these people have talked about how you cannot have socialism, communism, progressivism, Bolshevism, and still believe in God. So as Dostoevsky, he was combating in writing some of the ideas that Marx had put forth, but he pointed out the problem with communism, or he may have said socialism, is not economic. The problem is atheism. And Dana, I know when I was an exchange student for a summer, there were 8 Americans allowed in that summer on the program, and we were going into the only authorized seminary. The Russian Orthodox Church was allowed a seminary. I think they had 40 people a year that could be students brought in. And as you turn into the gates, it seemed like a couple hours outside of Moscow. Zagorsk was the name. But there was a building there, and it had a painting of Lenin's face, and then in Russian, Lenin z nami. Lenin is with us. You may be going into this seminary, but you need to know there is no God. It's Lenin that's with us. And that's the way it is. You have to have progressivism, socialism, and let's face it, communism, they never really had communism. True communism, there's no government. And Khrushchev himself gave up on that notion that there would ever be a system without government, because you've got to have totalitarianism. But you can't have freedom of religion. You can't have freedom of speech. You can't have freedom of assembly. And really, Dana, that's exactly what we're seeing in these places that have been taken over by the Marxist gangs, whether led by Antifa or BLM. It's you look at the manifesto, one of the things they're going to eliminate, they said, the Western style family. Well, it's not a Western style family. It's the family that Moses talked about. That if you believe in God, that God gave to Moses. And he said, a man shall leave his father and mother, a woman leave her home, the two will become one. And then when Jesus was asked about it, he quoted the same thing. So what we have here in the West is not Western style families. It is Middle Eastern, it's Judeo Christian families. And that's something that the socialists want to get rid of. And even Marx had talked about, gee, to do this right, we can have such a better society if the government takes over the care of children, and parents will be free to do what they want. They won't have freedom of religion, speech, or assembly, or any of those things. They won't have guns or weapons, but they'll have all this new freedom to do what they want. And I got cold chills when I went into a daycare center back in the 70s, and they said, children don't belong to the parents. They belong to our government. And if a parent tries to teach anything negative about our government, we immediately remove the children and put them in a home where they're taught the right things. And I thought, oh, thank God, literally, this is not the way it is in the United States.
Now.
And now we're seeing that's where they want to go.
That's where they want to go, and there are a lot of stories about that. That's a whole other discussion with regards to the education and this lockdown. We're out of time right now, though, but Congressman, we got to have you back because that's an angle we'll explore definitely. And I'm glad that that's being highlighted as the civil rights issue of our time by Republicans right now. So happy to see that you're on the road to recovery. Praying for you to get your strength back, Congressman. God bless you, and take care. We'll talk to you again soon.